Hi there. Hi, Wendy. Hi, I'm CJ Golden.
And I'm Wendy Green, and welcome to the Caregivers Bakery. This is 30 minutes for you to sit back, relax, put your feet up, be nourished by our conversation and by the taste test that we have at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm waiting for that. Can we fast forward just to get to that?
Right? Well,
no, I don't want to do that.
Hold on.
Because I don't want to fast forward through Kate.
Right. Be in the present moment, CJ. I have a question for you.
Yes. Darling.
So we had this wonderful meeting yesterday on the Sweet Spot. Everybody talking about different caregiving experiences and finding support. And I am not in the caregiving mode at this point, right? I'm not doing that. And so my question is, what do you do afterwards? Where do you find your support? Because you're still feeling lonely. You're still feeling like overwhelmed. You need help. What do you do?
Yeah. And you still, we tend to describe ourselves and or define ourselves by that which we are doing. Now, you go to a party and somebody will say, hi, what do you do?
Right.
And that's what defines us, not, hi, who are you? Hi, what are your philosophical beliefs? Hi, what do you do? And, it's easy when you say, well, I'm a caregiver. I'm a caregiver to my husband. I'm a caregiver to my parents, my children, whatever. And then when that caregiving ends, you're left with, a what? And you have to redefine yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's not easy at all to do, because you have to reach back into yourself. Remember who you were prior to the caregiving. Discover what skills you have, what you enjoy doing, what your beliefs are. And actually, it's interesting because we are going to have a guest on April 1st, actually, Rabbi Richard Address. And that's one of the many things that he talks about. Mm. And I've asked him to come on and discuss that very thing.
Oh,
what do you do when caregiving ends? Also, Alyssa Lewin, who was with us yesterday on the Sweet Spot, sent me a link. It's up on the Facebook page, folks. It's called the Well Spouse Organization, wellspouse.org.
Yeah,
very helpful.
Very good. Thank you. And you know what? I bet other people listening have other ideas. So like you did with Joe, maybe you can post this on the Facebook page too. What do they do after caregiving?
Yeah. Let's absolutely. See. Well, that's what the Facebook page is there for, folks. Not only to learn about the Caregivers Bakery, Zooms, and the Sweet Spot, but for us to converse as a community.
Right. And we are building a community.
Yeah.
May I tell them how to reach out to get some more information?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if you want to join us in the taste test, which we love for you to do, because otherwise we're just enjoying it, you can email us. You can email CJ at authorcjgolden@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can email me at wendy@heyboomer.biz, and you will get an email that includes the recipe for our Thursday show. And if you want to go join us on the Sweet Spot, so like I said, it's once a month. And our guest next week is going to be fabulous. Next month is going to be fabulous, right? There's going to be a posting on the Facebook page. It says the Sweet Spot. It has a picture of a cherry pie on it. And just go and register. You have to register for the Zoom link. Otherwise, you can't get in, because it's a private meeting. It's not a show. We just want to keep it a safe space for all of us.
Yeah. And next month, which is, I think, on the 21st of April, it's Kate Washington, who is a journalist from California, from Sacramento. And she's recently written, and it was just released, already toast. Let me see, the subtitle is Caregiving and Burnout in America. I've spoken with her. She's fabulous.
Okay. So you go ahead.
What? No, I'm just
Yeah, no. Okay. So we want you to converse with us in chat. Like I see Doris and Kathy out there. Hi, ladies. Thank you for joining. If you want to tag somebody, you can do the ampersand in front of their name. So ampersand Wendy Green, and I will be notified to watch this show. But may I bring Kay on?
Please, please.
Please.
I love this woman.
I know she's a wonderful. Hi, Kay.
Hey, ladies.
Let me take this off. So let me do a quick introduction, Kay, since you're so wonderful. Kay Coughlin. Yes, okay.
I mean, I'll take
Kay Coughlin is a friend, and she is a caregiver for her mother and a caregiver for her kids, although they are somewhat independent now, and married and running her own business. Whew. So Kay is a coach for business people as well as for caregivers. She has a podcast called From One Caregiver to Another, and we're going to share information with you all about how to get information. And she also has a book that says From One Caregiver to Another, Overcoming Your Emotional Grind. So Kay, she gets it.
Yeah.
She gets it.
Kay, you're the typical underachiever. How do you overcome your emotional grind? Give us a synopsis of your whole book in 20 minutes. No, but
no, I mean,
particularly somebody who is as busy as you are, to be able to segment and to get your work done and to stay sane.
Well, the trick is to not be stuck in the emotional grind. It's to not have those emotions weighing you down. And the way that you have to do that is it's a 3-step process. And here's how it works. You have to notice what's going on in your head. And you just have to see it. You have to observe it. That's the first step in all mindfulness, by the way. All mindfulness starts with that simple act of observing. Now, I caution people, when you observe, you have to stop before you judge yourself. So it is literally simply observing. There's no analysis there. The second step then is when you begin to do a little analysis and you process a little bit. That's going to look different depending on what it is that's in your head. It could be that you need to feel a feeling. It could be that you want to consider a belief that you have, right? Processing is different depending on what it is. And then the third step is going to be creating what you really do want. It could be that you want to keep creating more of what's already in your head. You might want to change something. You might want to keep some things and change other things. You might want to change some relationships. So, steps 2 and 3 are the really hard work. The first step is just to see what's there in your head. And when you do that, you give yourself permission to be who you are. And I find that is the thing that lifts the weight the most off of people, is to stop thinking there's something broken or wrong about us for whatever is inside of us already. And so when you give yourself that permission, that gentle self-compassion and unconditional love for yourself, everything becomes easier to handle. Doesn't change the workload, but it changes the way you invite yourself in to live your own life and to be fully who you are without having to make apologies and without judging yourself. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And sometimes that's not easy, especially when you're exhausted, right? And so I'm curious, like, you have got to hit that wall every once in a while of exhaustion. And so what do you do then? How do you find that space to lovingly give yourself permission to feel that?
That is the $1,000,000 question. And I think in order to answer that, I have to take you back to 10 years ago when I was starting my own journey as a caregiver. 10 years ago, actually, right now, my husband and I were planning how to move back from Cleveland to Central Ohio, where I'm from, so that we could help my parents. And that was initially one of the things that I was worried about, was how were we going to handle that workload and that exhaustion? But I thought, I'll just figure it out as I go along. What I didn't know is that that help actually wasn't there. That help was not available. 10 years ago, when I started Googling help for caregivers, I thought that would be the term that would get me to a place where someone would understand me.
Yeah.
And the fact that I have all these other things going on, right? Yeah, it turns out that Googling that gets you to places where they talk about how to be a better caregiver. In other words, that is all about your relationship to your care receiver. What do you need to know to do things physically, to do things medically, to do things financially that have to do with your care receiver? And it doesn't take long to figure out that as a caregiver, you become invisible in a lot of ways. And it was at that point that I started to realize I couldn't find the help that I needed to be me, to be the person I wanted to be outside of caregiving. And so I had to start figuring it out for myself. Luckily, I didn't have to make it up, but I did have to get it from a lot of other sources: self-awareness, mindfulness, mental health, therapy. I had to go and do all of that and pull that together. And now I actually know, because of that journey that I went through, that a large part of our exhaustion as caregivers, and I'm talking physical exhaustion too, is when we try to push down what's really going on. That resistance, that denial of the things that are in your head, of the things you have to do as a caregiver that you don't like, of the fact that you actually are tired. Oh no, I'm not that tired.
Yeah.
You only got 4 hours of sleep. You're probably actually really tired. It's the energy we put into denying things that is an everyday stress. And I think that wears us out more than we could possibly understand. It's what we're taught to do, right? We're taught to soldier on, put on a brave
That's
face,
right.
put on a smile, pretend like you like it. And that takes so much energy. And that's where a lot of our exhaustion comes from.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
And so when a kind friend or family member appears at your doorstep and says, "How can I help?" Is that why the caregiver might very well say, "I don't need help. I have this"? Is there,
Yes.
what is the emotionality behind not accepting the help that you know darn well you need?
That still happens to me, CJ. And after all these years, you'd think that it wouldn't, but there's a reason. This is a term that only came into being very recently, and it is actually called human giver syndrome. And it is the belief that it is our job to be available physically and emotionally in the way other people like it, so that they can succeed, no matter what it costs us. And that is why when people show up and say, "How can I help?" we say, "I'm fine, I've got it all covered." Because we are taught to do things to make other people happy and to be pleasant so that other people can do the things that are right for them. That is literally what's going on there.
And do you think it's possible then that while the recipient, the person who needs the help, might not be aware of that phrase, human giver syndrome, that might also be what's going on? Oh, she's only asking to be nice. She doesn't really mean it.
That is one of the things that goes on. We are trained from the time, many of us, when we're very, very tiny, especially if we're women, There are men who identify with human giver syndrome, and I don't want to diminish that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But especially for women, many of us are taught from the time we are very, very tiny how to be attentive to the needs of others. So what goes on when someone offers you help and you turn it down, which like I say, that is still my knee-jerk reaction. It's because I have a lifetime of habits and patterns and thoughts that have taught me that's what I'm supposed to do. So what I have had to teach myself to do is pause and respond differently. It's possible to do. It takes a lot of work. It is the best thing I've ever done for myself. And actually, this is so important to me that I myself have a webinar on this coming up in May. Registration is not open yet, but because this term is not well known at all, and I think it's the foundation of most of what we encounter as caregivers, that feeling of being invisible. I want to help people understand that, and we have to understand what human giver syndrome is so that we can then choose what we want to do about it if we want to. So if anyone is interested in that, it's going to be on May 4th, which is Tuesday. And the registration link is not available yet. You can get on my email list now, and I'll let you know. And my email list is also called From One Caregiver to Another. So that's the way people can find out if they want to know more.
So would they go to this website, facilitatoronfire.net/learn more to?
Yep, that is it. And the first button on there is sign up to receive messages. And that's the way that you can get notified about that. Oh, and I have a podcast episode on human giver syndrome that will be going live on March 31st.
Okay, cool.
Good.
I would expect that creates an awful lot of resentment too, so you're giving. People are offering to help, but you're not taking, and then you're not taking care of yourself. And then you're like looking in your mind with this mindfulness that you talk about, and you're like, I just resent everybody right now. So, yeah, that's a tough one.
It can be a very vicious cycle, but you can't deal with the resentment if you can't see it. And if you can't admit it to yourself. That is why you have to see it first. And that's why I caution people to stop with the observation and don't move into judgment. It's way too easy to judge yourself.
Yeah.
For the things that we've just always been taught are the quote unquote good or right things to do. Turns out there's lots of ways we can live our lives, even as a caregiver. Just because there seems to be only one way doesn't mean it's the truth. But we have to see what we're doing first before we can make any other deliberate choices.
So when people would come to me when I was caregiving for Joe and say, what can I do to help? And I said, nothing, I got this. There were those also who knew that my sister-in-law knew that flying in from Chicago almost every weekend to be with me, to keep me company, that was what she could do. My friend who met me at the hospital door of Joe's room with a Starbucks cappuccino every morning, or almost every morning, she knew that's what she should do. There are people who are very adept at looking in and seeing what can be done without asking, but just doing it. How do we as caregivers get past ourselves and ask for help?
That's the journey, CJ. For all of us, I wish I could say that it were easy. Now, I can say that you were very lucky that you had those people in your life who were, I would say, courageous and compassionate. They showed up no matter what. I think that's one thing that we can teach the people in our lives to do, is to show up and simply be there. without having to fix anything, without having necessarily to do anything, to just show up. Because we do find that that stops happening. And I mean, by we, I mean all caregivers
Sure.
have at one time or another experienced a loss of community. We were designed to be in community, so that's a very dangerous thing to happen. Those of us who have close friendships and close family members who are willing to push through that, we are the ones who are going to be healthier physically and mentally. So there are friends in my life who I have actually said these words to you. Even if I push you away, keep coming back. I have given them that permission right now. And that has to do with everything in my life as well as caregiving. But I have said those words. You are dear to me. If I push you away, don't take it from me. You push back.
And that's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a contract that we have already. And they do the same thing to me. If I sense they're pushing me away, I don't let that happen there. I say, what is going on here? Tell me what I can do. Do you just need to talk? Don't push me away. It's a pretty beautiful thing to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So, Kay, what would you say are one or two essential things to know for self-care when you are caregiving somebody else?
Well, I mean, the first thing to understand is that no is a complete sentence. You hear that a lot now. That doesn't mean it's an easy sentence, and that doesn't mean that when you say no, the rest of it's all going to be easy. Because frequently you say no, and there will be a reaction to that. That is not what you wanted. But no is still a complete sentence. I think the second thing, which is a lot more work than just saying no, is beginning to work on your own boundaries. That's one of the things that is at the backbone of understanding human giver syndrome. Learning about boundaries. Being brave enough to set a boundary and have it not work out very well. Being brave enough to set a boundary and keep trying until you do get it right. And maybe to let go of some friendships, and maybe to let go of some things that aren't serving you very well. So between those two things, no, which is a boundary, by the way, but you don't have to know anything else to say no. And then learning more about what boundaries mean in your life, that those two things are going to be the best work you will ever do.
I like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about the
Is
chili?
it time to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, you know, Kay, you're nourishing us, body and soul and mind, and your recipe for this week, your chili, nourishes body and soul and mind as well. Wendy, can you put the recipe up while Kay tell us what it is about this recipe for chili that had you suggest it would be the right one to bring to us?
So my two kids are teenagers. I have two boys. They are, they're both teenagers now. That's hard to believe someday. What I learned when they were babies was that I did not have time to fuss over cooking. I like to cook, but I just didn't have to, except for special occasions, I didn't have time to fuss anymore. So my crock pot became my best friend, and also my bread maker. Between those two appliances, we will never be without fresh, home-cooked, really nutritious meals that are actually faster than going through a drive-through. I learned that you can even make baked potatoes in a crock pot. You throw them in the morning. Yes, you have to throw them in the morning, pop the lid on, turn the thing on high. It takes about 8 hours. They don't taste exactly the same as when you do them in the oven, but who cares? They're still delicious. But chili is one of those things that only gets better over time. So it only gets better when you throw it in the crock pot. This recipe, you can vary it if you have different ingredients on hand. All of the stuff that we use is canned. I usually use fresh onions, but we also keep chopped onions in our freezer. Sometimes we use the celery that's in this recipe, but if we don't have celery, then we don't use the celery. When I started eating plant-based 3 or 4 years ago, which I started doing because I'm actually literally allergic to dairy. So I had to cut cheese and milk out of my diet. So I started eating plant-based. Once I decided I wasn't really going to eat meat anymore, then we took the meat out of this recipe and now we use chickpeas instead. But you could use ground beef or, whatever you want to use in this. It's really versatile. Takes 5 minutes. You'll notice there's no spice in this recipe other than the cumin. And that's because I do have a wide range of taste buds that I have to accommodate. And you can always add spice with your own hot sauce, but you can't take it out.
Right.
There's not much added. Did I even put salt in this recipe? I don't think I did.
No salt. There was no salt.
This I tend to do without salt because there's a lot of salt in canned goods and you never know how salty it's going to be. And again, you can always add salt if you want it. So this is a super easy recipe. It freezes beautifully. It tastes better after it sits for a day.
Mm-hmm.
People can nab a bowl of it as they're walking through the kitchen if we aren't all having dinner at the same time. It's nourishing for my mom. We feed her most nights. Once or twice a week, she cooks for us, and someone will bring the dinner over to our house. During COVID, we're not actually sharing meals, but we do cook for each other. So this transports over to her house nicely. She lives next door to me. She's on the property with me. And we really can't lose. I've never found anyone who doesn't like this recipe. So there you go. There's the setup. What do you think?
Well, we have it here, folks. And those of you who were wise enough to email us to get the recipe in advance, taste test. You ready?
I'm unwrapping mine. Hold on. I did use ground beef in mine.
Mm-hmm. I did too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I had a thing last week where I talked about Joe's taste buds, and he's very wonky. We had this last night, I got to tell you, because I made it yesterday, and oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. But do we have anything else to do? I want to finish.
I know. It's yummy. And what I did is I used 2 different kinds of beans. So I used the black beans and the red beans.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the corn. I would have not thought to put the corn in there. So great idea. And it's delicious.
Yum.
So we use the leftovers from this actually on baked potatoes later in the week. So we wash the crock pot out and put the baked potatoes in there. And we will use this as a topping when we do tacos. So if I only have a little bit left, I'll freeze that and then we can put it in our Taco Tuesday tacos.
Cool.
Kind of the recipe that keeps on giving.
And somebody here, Gail Quay said, it's really good. She did it meatless.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a family favorite for a long time. And I just love that it's only cumin in there.
Yeah.
Makes it really simple.
Well, I love cumin,
but so good.
But I did add a little few other spices like garlic.
How could you?
It worked.
I know. But yeah, very healthy. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kay.
Kay, thank you so much for being with us today. It was truly, and I'm not just saying this because I'm supposed to say it. I don't have to say anything. I don't say anything I don't have to say. It was a delight. Really. There's so much knowledge within you, and your ability and love of sharing it with others is so apparent and so helpful, and we appreciate it so much.
I'm so grateful to both of you, not just for having me on here, but for having this forum, this place for caregivers. We do not have enough of that for us as caregivers who are people beyond caregiving. Right. Thank you for giving us a place to be here together. It means
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And folks, next week, who was with us next Thursday?
So we have Janice Ferraro.
Oh my goodness, Janice Ferraro. Oh,
yes, your trainer.
Janice is my trainer. She kicks me into shape, but she's been a remarkable caregiver for both of her parents. And you will see her story, how she is a woman who, with her kids and her husband's backing and help and support, how they all work to care for both her dad and her mom. very super lady, and she has a recipe for the
Scones.
scones. Yeah, I'm
Yes, that was her
anxious to
mom's
get to those.
recipe.
Um,
Yeah. So, and let me just share Kay's website again.
please, yes.
So she has the podcast From One Caregiver to Another. And she was telling us about the upcoming webinar on human giver syndrome. So all the information will be on facilitator on fire.net/learn more. So go there, subscribe, sign up, anywhere we can get help, Kay. And we appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much.
And we wanted to remind people, CJ, right, if they wanted to contact us for the recipes.
Absolutely, to send us an email, authorcjgolden@gmail.com, and Wendy at heyboomer.biz. Send us an email. We'll send you the recipes in advance, so you could have been eating this chili with us today. But you could be eating scones with us next week. Thank you for being with us. I'm CJ. That beautiful redhead is Wendy.
Wendy.
And we know that caregiving is not a piece of cake. Let us help you find the sweet spots.
Bye. Thank you.